In the previous video, number 3, we looked at a doctrine taught by the Watchtower for nearly 100 years that Jesus appointed it over all his earthly interests in 1919 after starting an examination in 1918. We saw that in the July 15, 2013 Watchtower, the organization made a major change in that doctrine. Finally, we examined why Jesus' arrival to appoint the faithful slave over all his belongings did not occur in 1919, but will take place during the Great Tribulation. This was one of 3 major changes. Yet come January 15, 2014, Jehovah's Witnesses were told, after the enthroned king purged the heavens of the corrupting influence of Satan and his demons, Jehovah directed Jesus to inspect and refine the spiritual condition of his followers on earth. History shows that this took place between 1914 and the early part of 1919. Jesus then used his kingly authority to appoint a faithful and discreet slave. Confused? I spoke with an elder who explained that Jesus did not appoint them over all his belongings, but instead appointed them to provide the spiritual food to the flock. Now, that doctrine puts the organization in even bigger trouble than the previous one. We'll talk about this in video 6. The million-dollar question to be asked is why Jehovah's Witnesses remain loyal to an organization with a history of false prophecies, ridiculous Bible interpretations, and doctrines that change regularly, contradicting itself and at times going back to old, once discarded teachings. The first answer lies in what we just examined. They believe that Jesus Christ appointed this organization in 1919. It is therefore, in their eyes, Jehovah's organization. But what of the overwhelming evidence that this could not possibly be true? First of all, there are millions of former Jehovah's Witnesses who are independent thinkers, who see this for what it is. People whose consciences could not allow them to stay in that organization. By thinking for themselves, they went against a Watchtower philosophy. The organization instructs members to avoid independent thinking. They refer to it as a trap. Speaking to the issue of those members who reject the altered doctrines, the Society said in 2006, "A few become righteous over much and resent the changes. Pride may play a role, and some fall into the trap of independent thinking." Listen to this. But a spirit of independent thinking does not prevail in God's organization, and we have sound reasons for confidence in the men taking the lead among us. Their confidence is in men. They do not independently think for themselves. No, these men think for them. They very craftily encourage members to avoid independent thinking, suggesting it as a tool of Satan. The Society explains how this supposedly satanic independent thinking seeks to invade the organization. How is such independent thinking manifested? A common way is by questioning the counsel that is provided by God's visible organization. Note, not questioning the counsels of the Bible, but the counsel provided by the organization. They are told that God wants to protect them from Satan using the organization. Through Jehovah's organization and its publications, we receive loving reminders for our protection. Not through the Bible, no, through their publications. Members are conditioned to think that their safe haven is the organization, and if they give willing submission to the elders, God will bless them. Another reason must be considered. There is an army of former Jehovah's Witnesses who want to help their brothers and sisters, but the organization has conditioned the mind of members not to listen to them, labeling them as apostates and even as agents of Satan. They twist the Bible to justify this policy of shunning former members using 2 John 10. Paul was speaking here of people who do not bring the doctrine of the Christ, people who denied that Jesus Christ came in the flesh. See verse 7. Paul calls them the Antichrist, not apostates. They also use 1 Corinthians 5 verse 11. Here Paul was speaking about members in the church who turned to sexual immorality, greed, idolatry, slander, drunkenness, or extortion. In none of these did Paul speak about apostates. Of course, one may argue that if a brother is disfellowshipped for any of the above offenses, Paul advised not to keep company with them. Argue that if you wish. But what of a brother who is disfellowshipped before July 2013 because he rejected a teaching that Christ appointed the Watchtower over all his belongings in 1919? Did Paul suggest that you avoid such a brother? There is not one verse in the Bible that instructs anyone to avoid a person who rejects a teaching that his conscience could not allow him to embrace. Not once does the Bible even hint at such a principle from God. But the Watchtower organization knows exactly what it is doing.
Some people insult those who disagree with them by questioning character or motives instead of focusing on the facts. Name-calling slaps a negative, easy-to-remember label onto a person, a group, or an idea. The name-caller hopes that the label will stick. If people reject the person or the idea on the basis of the negative label, instead of weighing the evidence for themselves, the name-caller's strategy has worked.
This brings us to the next reason members stick with the organization: the fear of being disfellowshipped, the fear of being labeled an apostate, the fear of being shunned.
When my husband and I resigned by sending in a letter of disassociation, we were not merely dropped from membership. We were actually shunned as being evil.
Even today, if a Jehovah's Witness is caught associating with us, they are subject to being disfellowshipped themselves.
Because of the way that they had treated my family, I disassociated myself from the Watchtower Society, never dreaming that my children would refuse to have anything to do with me. In fact, I have a little 2-year-old grandson that I've never even seen.
My 2 children and my 5 grandchildren are forbidden to see me, their grandmother, because of the Watchtower. What kind of organization, going under the heading of Christian, would disallow the children and grandchildren to see their mother and grandmother?
The lives of the disfellowshipped are filled with the chill of loneliness, the never-ending sadness of separation from family members. To find something to believe in, to trust in, is very hard.
Sad. Very sad. Finally, ignorance is a very compelling reason keeping Jehovah's Witnesses loyal to the organization. Jehovah's Witnesses do not listen to the truth about the organization's history from apostates or agents of Satan, not when they can hear it from the organization they trust. The Watchtower printed a history book that is far more an attempt to rewrite history than to tell what actually happened. That book paints a glowing picture of the past that would attract even non-Jehovah's Witnesses to the organization. Jehovah's Witnesses do not know that a lot is being hidden from them in their history book. In the next video, we will examine how the Watchtower organization uses theocratic war strategy to keep Jehovah's Witnesses from truthful information that the society apparently believes the members are not entitled to.